open space for questions. Or if you prefer, you can also leave your questions on the chat here in Google Meet for our group or in YouTube. As usual, before the seminar, we ask those who have good news to share them at this time. So if someone have a good news, I have one.
I think you should start.
Yeah, sure. Months ago, we made a submission of my first paper to scientific reports. And this week, we received the approval. So it's exciting that we have now an approve to the first paper in this good journal. Thank you to all of you.
Very good.
I open my camera as well. So first of all, congratulations, Marisol. We know how hard it is to publish a paper, especially in a good journal like that one. So I would like to inform that I scheduled my thesis defense. So it's going to be 2nd of July. It's a Friday afternoon. So all of you are invited to join to my presentation.
Very good, Thiago.
Okay. And last week it was holiday in Brazil, so I didn't told you, but this week I will keep you posted. I finished my experiment last week, so now I have all the data to analyze and run out the statistics. So I'm really excited to do that. Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. Arthur had completed a very exciting piece of work extracting RNA from corpus luteum from sows, and that was done in a record time. That's brilliant. Can I say something also, Marisol?
Sure, please.
I'd like to report that today I shared the meeting from the conveyor. That's the City Council on Animal Welfare. And I'm really happy that Johanna and Maria Eduarda participated in the meeting. And the meeting from the conveyor was really exciting, Dennis, because they're concerned with capybaras. People are hunting capybaras in the Horto. And they would like, Bruna, Melina, and Erica, they would like to strengthen the partnership with us on education on environmental issues. Then there was a very nice discussion. The other meeting is that we have talks from the posted on the ISAE that are being reviewed this week. How many contributions we have at the ISAE? We have Marisol, Leandro, and also Gabriel.
Thiago.
Thiago too.
I think that Leandro not yet.
Okay, that was very exciting. I also had good news that I wrote an editorial to this Brazilian Journal of Veterinary and Animal Science Research, where we have 15 papers on donkeys, 15 papers, and I wrote the editorial. That was quite an exciting mission. And also I wrote an article that's going to be circulating in a special issue of a journal that goes to the embassies all around the world, dealing with the issue of sustainability, animal welfare in Brazil. These are the good news that I have to share.
Thank you so much, Adroaldo. I think that Leandro have even a good news.
Hi, my name is Leandro. Now, this week I had a process of selective of my PhD, and I was accepted. And then I was started with the group my PhD. This is the good news.
Welcome, Leandro.
Very good.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing the good news. Now we are going to continue with the speaker presentation. Miguel Nova Chamorro is a veterinarian in the Unit of Rescue and Rehab of Wild Animals, URRAS, at the National University of Colombia. His professional interests are wild bird medicine, One Health, and community work. The title of his seminar today is Happy or Healthy Bird? Welfare in Wild Birds Rehabilitation. Very welcome, dear Miguel. It is a pleasure to have you with us. And from now on, you have 45 minutes. I wish you all an excellent seminar. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. I am very pleased to be here with you. Seeing all the introduction, I see that every person in this group is very intelligent, is like very interested in all the investigation area and with a lot of achievements until the date. So I'm very glad to be here. I hope this session will be as you expect it will to be. So if I may start with your approbation, I will share my window. Do you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Well, so I'm gonna start now. Well, the topic for today is Happy or Healthy Bird, Welfare in Birds Rehabilitation. This is a very special topic for me because many of the welfare issues that are treated or discussed in the society are mainly of domestic animals, are cats, some production animals, but wildlife is less known, is let's say like a far away topic from many of our reality. So is unknown a lot of things when we talk about these birds. Marisol of the unit of National University at Colombia. So I'm gonna introduce all this space for you to know how it is in a better idea. Well, URRA is located in Bogota at the center of Colombia. We are ubicated at 2,600 meters over the sea level. So it's cold, it's humid, where many clouds, maybe not a lot of light. So that are environmental conditions that we have to consider when we receive animals from other regions of Colombia, mainly that from that we say in Spanish, hot land, tierra caliente, animals that are from below the 1,000 meters over sea level. Something very nice about this unity is that is what's created by a student initiative led by the professor Jaime Umaya in 1995. At that time, the students were worried about what issues were affecting wildlife, and they started pushing the university to create a clinic, a hospital for wildlife. And this is the very beginning of the unity. From that time on, URRAS has been changing a lot, maybe. We have the participation of international students, many professionals, some ones with PhD, with masters. So it's very interesting how all these contributions of the people that pass through the unity are making it grow even more each time. We have 5 main objectives. The first is education. As you see, URRAS is a clinic or a student hospital, a university hospital. So we have to do practices, we have to do lessons, classes, and the student participation within the unity is very, very important. The objective is that they are the better wildlife veterinarians that Colombia will have. So we appoint to the top. The second one is the investigation. We count with the participation of students making theses, maybe for the part of the veterinary program itself, or masters, or even a PhD. The third one is to be a veterinary wildlife hospital. At the time in Colombia, there was maybe none, or it was an area that was not so known at all. So let's say that Urras was one of the first hospitals in wildlife that have Colombia. The second one, the fourth one, please, is to be a reference center for rehabilitations. As I will show you in the presentation, you will see our installations, how we distribute some spaces, and how is the process of rehabilitation. We get certain success in species that are, let's say, complex about behavior, welfare, maintenance. So that's a recognition we have from other institutions and from the people in Colombia and some centers outside the country that share our objectives, our mission, our vision. And the fifth one, we were an exotic animal hospital, but after some arreglos, some changes we got upon a new legislation, we have to suspend this service from people. So let's say it was an income of money that we lose at that point. So this is Urras. I would like to introduce a brief summary of what is animal welfare. I know you may even know this better than me. So let's do it fast. The American Veterinary Medical Association defines animal welfare as how an animal is coping with the condition in which it lives. An animal is in good state of welfare if it is healthy, comfortable, well-nourished, safe, able to express innate behavior, and if it is not suffering from unpleasant states such as pain, fear, and distress. The International World Animal Association for Health tell that animal welfare is a complex of multifaceted subject with scientific, ethical, economic, cultural, social, religious, and political dimensions. The physical and mental state of an animal in relation to the conditions in which it lives and dies. They use as principles the 5 freedoms. As you see, animal welfare is not just a topic that veterinarians have to discuss. It's a topic that biologists, animal engineering, animal science professionals, veterinarians, people from the common, maybe supported by what we know as citizen science or participative science, will apport or do something to contribute this topic. Well, I will like to make a brief summary about the 5 freedoms or the 5 domains that are changing the concept in some texts, in some papers. So this is a concept created by Britain's Farm Animal Welfare Council in 1965. After that, it was mainly for production animals, but it has extended to other areas, and many people like us, wildlife veterinarians, have to apply these principles because they are very good. They let us know a lot about the animals we're treating too. So the first principle is freedom from hunger and thirst. What it is important to know to us about this? Many animals, wildlife animals, we don't know almost nothing about the biology. For example, this is an oil bird. In Spanish is guacharo. This is the only bird in the world that eats fruits by night. So it's very hard to feed an animal like this method. And the fruits that he consumes are fruits with a lot of lipid content. Many aguacate, palta, some guayabas, many trees from the family Lauraceas. So it's very hard sometimes to get these fruits for giving them to eat. This is an Ictibius. I know that in Brazil there are no like bugios, I think. This is an nocturnal species, feeds mainly of insects, so it's very hard to find the quantity of insects necessary daily to feed this animal. It consumes like 40, 30 cockroach from Madagascar daily, so it's hard to find that supplies daily. It's complicated. And this one is an eagle, but it's an eagle that consumes mainly snails. So how do you feed this animal in captivity with snails? It's very hard to find. So making animal welfare a transversal science or area of the knowledge, we have to dialogue with the animal science professional or zootecnista to make a diet that supplies the nutritional requirements that the animals needs. How does the animal feed? Does the animal feed like another animal? Just put the diet in some place and the animal will get and eat? No, that doesn't happen. For example, the Nictibius, we have to take the cockroach and throw it to it so he can like hunt the prey on air. It's very difficult in some times. For example, the guacharo or the oilbird didn't eat fruit who wasn't presented freshly at night. Yes, it's very difficult, and we have to be very sensible or we have to be very keen about what the animals are doing and what they need. How often does it eat? Maybe the eagle eats only once a day or once every 2 days, but the Nictibius will eat each for 3-4 hours. It's different. And in animals that are ill or have a disease, they need assistance. In birds, the anatomy of the birds requires a different perspective of how does you need to assist the feeding of the animal. The second freedom is the freedom from discomfort. So we have to think as an animal. How will I sleep? How will I going to get shelter? Maybe this hummingbird will find itself protected in a bush with leaves, with flowers. Yes, you see the animal is in an enclosure, yes, but because we need to do certain medical treatments and we have to keep the animal in a facility where we can take it to manipulate, make physical restraint, and perform the treatment in a way there is the less stress possible for both. This is an enclosure for the parrots. This group, I will talk later about it. This is how we serve the food. They have this area where they get sunlight and this area, let's say, in shadow, so they can transport to the light, to the shadow, depending what they want. If they want some hotter or some colder environment. And this group of parrots went to a proliferation enclosure in a place ubicated in La Orinoquia, in the Oriental Prairie. And this was the enclosure we prepared for them there. I will show you later what do we do in that place. The third freedom is from pain, injury, or disease. This is a very special topic for our labor area, the veterinary, because all the animals that get here are ill in certain way. For an example, this hawk was shot by some people in the woods. So these are the holes where the bullets enter the animal, and the column was cut in two. We couldn't do nothing for this bird. So you have to consider if you can do something for the animal, or you are going to take the animal alive forever and the animal is in this condition. Yes, it is not ethical to maintain animal in that way. Where I am is the equipment or personnel necessary to do something. Maybe you receive poisonous snake and no one in the team knows how to manipulate the snake, and you are exposing your team to a poisonous bite. It's a danger. You need to be very conscious you are running, and you have to control it. And something important is, well, you recover the animal, you get the animal out of the injury or the disease. What will you do with the animal? It is ethical or it is safe to take the animal all the life in an enclosure? So there is a lot of discussion in this topic because, yes, we know the percentage or the degree of threatening each species has in the wildlife, and you have considered you surely are not going to apply euthanasia to an animal that is critically endangered without a leg. Yes, that is not, let's say, ethical with the environment, not only with the animal, but with the environment. And we have to recognize that euthanasia is a tool that we must consider every day. Yeah, it is different for a dog, for a cat, when some person will take the animal in their home and will take care of the animal, and the animal surely will be happy. Yes, happy, and it's different for a hawk like this. For an example, this was a dove we received in the unit. I will show you this case later, but many people that say, no, this animal is very bad. How are you going to save it? Well, it was just a medical treatment, a surgical treatment, and the animal was released later. The fourth freedom is the freedom to express normal behavior. It is the animal capable to fly. I am interfering with a migration process. Sorry. Can the animal recognize its species? The vocalization in the case of the parrots are very, very important because we don't want to release animals in their environment. They speaking human words, and some hunter will take them again and resell them. It is the worst future we could expect when we were releasing some animal. I have to do some differentiation here between imprinting and the conditioning. Imprinting is a behavioral issue with the animals in the growing process. It usually happens in parrots, let's say, during the first 2 months or the month when the birds get out of the egg. Yes, it's different when we condition an animal, when we train, let's say, any bird for come, take a piece of food, and then leave. Conditioning is a reversible problem. We can treat conditioning, but imprinting is often irreversible. Imprinting maintains for life, and what you do will never take out that behavior from the animal. The fifth freedom, the last, is the freedom from fear and distress. Well, I think that is the most hard to fulfill in captivity process, because the animal the animal sees you as a hunter, as a threat, as a menace. So every day you have to pass to the animal, clean it, serve the food, maybe do a medical exam. All the animal is during a constant stress because the animal feels threatened. So you have to create strategies in the rehabilitation centers to make the animal be the less stressed possible, because there will always be stress in captivity. It's different in zoos when you train the animal for be kind with humans, let the animal manipulate easily, make some medical exams. But in the rehab centers, you want all the contrary. You want the animal to hide from you, to flee from you, maybe attack you. You want the animal to be completely autonomous and independent in their wildlife. One tip I give here is that rehabilitate fast and do not keep the animals, because mainly, well, not in birds so often, but in some mammals, when the animal get used to the food served in a dish, it is a problem, very hard to quit and eat the animal. When you release that animal, the animal will seek a house and enter the house and take probably the food of the house. Maybe some people will shoot the animal, or the animal will take a chicken from the house and the people will shoot it or kill it by other methods. That is the worst panorama you will have in this work. Well, so according to this, these principles and the things I have been explaining, there is a thing very important here, that is the chronic stress. Animals, when arrive first to the unity, have the acute stress as normal stimuli. The stress happens every day. Wildlife is harsh. Wildlife is violent, aggressive. Every day the animals have to face problems, how to get food, to deal a hail, to lead some cold. So it's very difficult when the animal start to show chronic stress, because what happens? The stimuli of the stress occurs permanent during the time, and we have the axis, the hypothalamus, pituitary adrenal axis, and the overstimulation of this hormonal response will lead to those effects in the metabolism, like gluconeogenesis, lipid metabolism, body growth, cicatrization, immunity, tissue repair. What happened? When this exposure is permanent, all these mechanisms get disordered, get without synchronized with what the body needs. So you have many things occurring in the animal that will decrease their fitness to their environment. Yes, you will see animals with immunodeficiencies. You will see animals that do not assimilate food the way they want. You see animals with the feathers or the beak in poor conditions that will surely affect how we'll desenvolve in wildlife. This is very important for welfare in captivity, because you have to mitigate these effects of chronic distress the most possible you can. Well, so I would like to present how is the process of admittance of an animal to the unity. Well, we have like 3 methods. The first one is every person can bring a rescued animal. You find a bird in Bogota, you came to Urras, and you sign a paper telling what happened to the animal and where and why do you bring it. Yes, the second one is that we have an agreement with some regional authorities, and when they find or they receive a call from an injured animal, they send the animal to us. So these are cases of animals that were taken by a car, that were shot, maybe attacked by dogs. This is like the most important income of Urras at the moment. And the third one is in many construction sites, there has to be some trees that are taken away. So these trees have nests or some birds. When they find this nest and birds, they bring us to the unity. We have an egg equipment. So we just put the eggs there. We monitor the humidity, the temperature, the growing process of the embryo, and we expect they hatch and enter to the rehabilitation program of the unity. This is a photo of any person bringing an animal to the unity. This is the front door of the unity. What we ask for the person is where it was found. Yes, in Colombia we have some laws that tells that you need a paper from the authorities to move wildlife from one region to another. So if the animal comes from another region without that paper, you will be like signaled for animal trafficking. That's illegal. That's a problem. So the authorities enter to an investigation. But if the animal is from Bogota, we receive the animal with no problem, because every person can be the one who found an animal. That's not illegal. That's just, let's say, luck. When the animal was found, it is ill, wounded. Do you see the animal from one side, maybe crash to a window? So that's important. If they was fed with something, what did they do? How often? If the animal is capable for consuming this food. If some cases, many people start a medical treatment, and we see that the human doses of the pharmacos are used in the animal, so it can happen that the animal gets to Urras with intoxication from acetaminophen, paracetamol. How was the animal kept? Meanwhile, let's say some people wrote to the email of URRAS, and we gave indications. Let's take the animal to a silent place with no light, that the animal doesn't see you, be calm, don't disturb the animal. So when that happens, the animal get to the unity with a very good mental state, let's say like that. But when people doesn't communicate with the unity or don't seek in internet some answers, maybe they bring the bird in the hand or in a pocket, maybe with the dogs barking around, and the animal is super stressed, at least choking itself, so it's very hard to do something. And you have to be very curious in here. You have to ask, how was the animal founded? Maybe if there is any condition extra, let's say blood, was he stuck in a tree, was trapped in some net. That's very important because you have a short time to perform a medical exam in this species, and that directions that the people gives you are very important because allows you to focus on the real problem, on the main problem of the animal, but you have to do or perform the medical exam completely. Well, this is a photography of my colleague performing a medical exam to a toucanet. If we need some medical extra exams, we have the clinic, we have the radiography equipment, we have an extra tomography, and we have a lot of laboratories. That's the let's say an advantage of the university and the installations they have. And so for so many animals, we have to perform genetics because many species are so similar. We have to count genes or see the cells. Well, that methods from genetics, I really don't know a lot. Well, so this, when the animal arrives to URRAS, we have to make a first approach to welfare. Maybe in birds, what is more obviously is the feeder state. Yes, when you receive a bird in this state for self-blocking feeders, it is not very likely that the animal will survive or will outcome this disease. In these cases, the euthanasia is recommended for these animals because it is very hard to the feeders to grow. People usually here in Colombia don't give the animals the nutrition they need. It also be a vitamin A deficiency or some else problem, hepatic disease, etc. This is the worst case, but some mild cases present the stress bars or the fault bars. There is an impairing of the collagen fixation in the feather during the growing because the action of the corticosterone, that is the hormone that participates during the stress stimuli in birds, different from mammals, that is the cortisol. This is when the bird will a non-recoverable state. Well, the second one, very important, is the beak integrity. Yes, you see this Amazon parrot with a fracture in the beak. We studied this case, we discussed it. The animal could eat by itself, could search a mate, could find shelter. So we entered this animal to a program of rehabilitation without problem, but is a condition that may have been impaired some animals. We have the second condition. This is a ring-cup snigger, a bird that is characterized for fishing in the rivers. He passes on the surface of the rivers and the fish get stuck in here. We have to recognize the difference between species. This is an abnormal beak for a parrot. You have to polish, you have to recover this beak, but this beak is normal for this bird. So you have to know how this difference may interfere with the rehabilitation program. Maybe someone will receive the animal and say, well, this beak is abnormal, I have to polish it, to cut it, and make a cut in here or an incision. This is a disastrous, and maybe you are causing this animal to death or condemning it to be in captivity all this life. So we have to consider this. How do we know if a beak is healthy? It is shiny, it is complete, it has no fractures, and it is clean. Yeah. The third parameter that we use for the assessment of welfare is laboratory exams. As I was telling you, nutrition was not very good in many houses when the animal was taken by the police or by the authorities. So we performed these immunological exams. In this case, the hepatic silhouette is enlarged, and you can suspect of an hepatic disease. In this case, it is completely indicated to run clinical exams and study how are the hepatic enzymes participating in the metabolic state of the animals, so you can get an idea of how it is better. You have to put the animal in the cage, in the kennel, see how does it moves, how it interact with the environment, if it plays, if it vocalizes, if it flies. So it's very important, mainly with the conspecifics, the animals of their own species, and the biochemistry I was telling you before. Well, when the animal gets healthy and rid of the medical conditions, we send the animal to a maintenance enclosure. This is a group of screech owls. You see, we have an animal in growing process. This is a juvenile individual. Well, all of this is more adult. What we expect with this group is that they learn from mimicking the adult. What we do is put some juvenile with one adult, and the adult teaches them to find shelter, to hunt their prey. This species is mainly insectivore, so we have to perform nutritional enrichment daily for fulfill these necessities. In this case, we receive a mother of a barn owl with their two sons. We prepare a kennel in the enclosure, and what we are seeing here is how the sons are starting to make flies in the enclosure. All these cases were successful cases of reintroduction animals in their environment the last year. And what we do what we are searching for in here is that animals doesn't relationate humans with food, with protection, with shelter. So what we do in URAS is that we have some disguises. As you see, this is me with a disguise. You see, mainly for mammals. Disguises for birds are all green or brown, including a helmet or to take out your face, to cover your face. This is where animals are when they have no medical issues, when we want to be animal fit to their environment and very apt to hunt and live by themselves. This is a very special case. This is an osprey. This is when it arrives. This was stayed in the kennel. After all the process, we get this animal. You see, it can perform flies, the equilibrium, it was able to hunt. We have to put fishes in a recipient with water, and the eagle get the fishes. This was a successful case of rehabilitation. We have to perform hunting tests for these raptors. This is the gray-chested eagle from the Paramus environment. You see, take the mice, and you are seeking the animal that it can kill the mice. We don't release animals if they don't get their food on their own, but there is something very special, the prey welfare. We need to maintain the animal that are used for feeding these raptors well. So what happens if the mice wasn't hunted by the eagle? We have to take out the mice and perform euthanasia of the individual, because being in such contact with the hunter, it is very stressful for the animal. So for welfare, you perform this. This test is only performed once in the rehabilitation process. If you know the animal hunts, then you don't need to perform a hunting test, because maybe it is stressful for the prey, or the prey. Let's say another case. What happened if the eagle couldn't hunt the mice, and the mice bite the eagles and fractures one finger? So that's other terrible outcome. Well, when we take out this process, we are talking about rehabilitation. Let's say, yes, the animal fits, it is all okay, but we don't know the inner state of the animal. As a sample, we blood chemistry, and we make a study of the white blood cells. Yes, we usually perform imagenological exams like radiography, and we determine that the animal doesn't have any subclinical condition and can be released with the better outcome possible. So, other important thing to consider is that wildlife is the first contact of humans and the wild environment. So the chances to find new diseases or make a zoonotic disease appear are very high. We need to assure that the animals are free from influenza and Newcastle. This is the case of Newcastle. This is a recent news from the influenza report in Jiangsu, China. And we need to assure that these diagnoses are controlled at time to avoid things like the COVID pandemics we are treating like now. This is a very special topic, because we don't know how COVID will happen in many wild animals. We don't know in primates. We don't know if certain species of birds could be ill. So we have to be very, very keen, pay very special attention to this topic nowadays. Other thing we have to consider when we are talking about releasing animals is the environmental health. As I say, wildlife medicine is the first barrier of potential zoonotic diseases. We have to make epidemiological monitoring of these diseases. We have to get to the definitive diagnosis of the animal. Every animal that gets to the unit is taken to necropsy. Many are taken from histopathological studies, because if we find something rare, we have to tell the authorities, hey, this is happening, we have to pay attention to this, we must stop a problem before it gets really, really complicated. And we, as tropical countries, are more likely to develop new diseases. As I was telling you, the COVID case, this article from 2007, these scientists tell about the possible of emerging coronavirus disease, and in the article they take the presence of a large reservoir of SARS-CoV-like viruses in horseshoe bats together with the culture of eating exotic animals in southern China is a time bomb, like 14 years before the pandemic occurred. So we have to be very, very interested and pay very special attention to these issues. Well, when we are sure that the animal is not in danger or the environment is not in danger, we start the process in situ of freedom. We have two methods for introducing animals to the environment. One is the soft method, using for animals with a complex behavioral characteristics, or the hard, that is the most common, is easier, is cheaper. It's that you go to the woods, to the environment, to the ecosystem the animal to the animal to have, and release the animal. Yes, ideally you must monitor the individuals before the liberation. What happens in birds? It is very hard. Yes, tiny birds, let's say a dove or a hummingbird. How do you put a chip, a GPS on these animals? It's likely not. Yes, very hard. But in some animals that are most special, let's say a condor, you will seek forward monitoring with GPS. Yes. Well, in the process, you will see parrots getting uterus in this state with feathers in not a good state, maybe depressed. When we assure the animal is healthy, we pass to a group when we see that the animals have compatible personalities or paroralities. I don't know what to say it. Because we don't want that the group fights, and when we release the group, they start dividing itself, and every parrot goes each independent way. So we have to be a group that is cohesive, that they take along all the way, and this is the final phase of the process. This is the group of urras. This is a group of parrots. This is how they were in their kennels, and they were translated to the region in the Llanos where they were released. I want to thank all the people that participated in this process. It was very, very hard. This is the installation we make there. This is the first enclosure. You see it has a shadow zone, a light zone. The food was served in the branches. And we are saying that the animal accommodates to the environmental characteristics, temperature, humidity, all of that, and avoid maybe some unfortunate outcomes in the environment. If we take the parrot and release without a process, maybe it could die from hunger or a predator or couldn't find shelter. This, after 1 month in being in this enclosure, this is one of the parrots feeding from some food we were putting to them to be sure they are feeding from, and then they started flying far and far away until we didn't see them anymore. But we consider this is a successful reintroduction to the ecosystem. Well, how do we select the liberation site? We have to search a site that has no human intervention, or the less possible. We have to study wild populations death because we don't want to perturbate healthy ecosystems. We have to search for the natural distribution of the species according to the genetics we get in the laboratory. And if there is any threat, it must be natural. Avoid ecosystem with stray animals. This is the case of the dove. This dove was attacked by a feral cat, and the crop was cut. We perform a surgical suture, and with antibiotics and analgesics, then the individual gets fine. I would like to share this article, The Impact of Free-Range Domestic Cats on Wildlife in the United States. They say in one phrase that the estimation of kills by cats is 1.3 or 4 billion birds and between 6.3 and 22.3 billion mammals annually only in the United States. So we have to make the proprietaries or the owners of the animals very conscious about sterilization, about keeping the animals inside the house, perform environmental enrichments inside the house. Welfare of the animals we have as pets is also the welfare of animals we are expecting to conserve or preserve in wild environments. Well, other problem we have in the environment is the expansion of the agricultural frontier here in Colombia. This is the Páramo. We are here like 3,200 meters above sea level. And this is a problem because we are getting out of places. Many places we select before for releasing animals are now disappearing because of this problem. We have also the illegal trade. We have hunting because human problems, because the bird take my chickens, and the stray animals and deforestation, as I mentioned before. These strategies can help with some ideas of many people that contributes to conservation. This is Attila. I want to introduce you Cetus isidori, a critically endangered bird, one of the biggest eagles in the world and one of the strongest. This is the group of the Centro de Rehabilitation de Aves Rapaces San Isidro and the Foundation Águilas de los Andes. We were taking Attila to a community in the woods of Risaralda to meet the people that live in there because they were having problems with Spicetus tyrannus. Especitos isidori, sorry. So when the people see the eagle at first person, let's say that, they get in shock, they get in love with the animal. So the lesive or the dangerous threatening characteristics of the people or behaviors were ameliorated by this program of conservation of animals. We have to make people be aware of what their natural richness are. Maybe here in Colombia we have a lot of animals. Brazil is also a mega diverse country. So this is the key, conservation key. People take care of what they know. They need to know that and fall in love with that. Other strategy is the economical transformation. Well, if you tell people, hey, do not trespass the agricultural frontier toward the Paramo and take your cattle outside your house, well, that surely will be a problem. So you have to take people, well, let's take out the cattle, but we are start to manage some sheep, and during the night the sheep will be in a house and in a special enclosure for them. Or maybe you can help us in the birds observing, and you will become a bird guide. So nowadays in Colombia, it's very popular that people are coming to the country to see birds, and this is a opportunity we have to take and show people that it is an economical outcome they will have to consider. So, well, after all this conversation, is what is the happy or healthy bird thing each? Well, maybe they could be happy, yes, in captivity with certain cares. We as humans have to take care of the animal, but think as the animal. You don't serve this hog pizza with anchovies or nachos. You have to serve rat, mice, maybe some doves. It is the animal behavior that you are trying to satisfy. It is not your behavior. And you have to understand that when you release an animal, that nature is not what we think, what the many television channels show to us. The animal all happy, grazing in the lands. No, the nature is violent. There is always a predator-prey relationship. Animals could die from cold, could die from a disease, maybe without attention, and when they are ill, other predator will eat them. So you have to consider that. That's why rehabilitation programs need to be so strict with the parameters, and the animals to be liberated be as fitness as possible. We have to keep the animals in the best conditions we can. It's our responsibility if we assume this job, and we have to be studying and talking with people who knows of the topic and apporting to the discussion how to improve, how do you perform better, how can I change the things for the animal to be happier, and to recognize the importance of veterinary medicine. Not all diseases jeopardize welfare, but it is really, really important to get a diagnosis, not only for the individual itself, but for the ecosystem. Well, and something very special I would like to talk about is our welfare. It is said that veterinary medicine is the profession that has the most ratio of suicides, and we need to be happy for what we are doing. We as veterinary colleagues have to be empathy toward our colleagues. May not all assume the sad cases the same. Maybe an euthanasia will give harder to one and not to another. But we are friends. Yes, all veterinarians are trying to get to the same objective, and we have to preserve each other. It is important to talk about these things. If you feel sad, search anyone you can talk to, psychological help, and obviously you have to find the beautiful things of the job you are doing. This is the liberation of the Osprey I showed you earlier. This was a kilometer walk with the kennel in our hands. And this is the very special moments that make you stronger and make you be and make you continue in the process and not to get aside. Other important thing I would like to tell you for closing this session is I would like to introduce Gonzalo Cardona. He was known as the guardian of the Loro Oreji Amarillo, and he was one of the social leaders killed in Colombia this year. He was working since 1999 in the preservation of these individuals, critically endangered and endemic species. When he assumed the coordination of the center, or the responsibility, there was only 100 of these individuals left. And when he died, there were almost 1,000. So it's very important to know these problems are happening, that conservation is harmed and threatened by the country. And I hope you know Colombia is now in a strike. As the poster say, Colombia with P, because our president say it's Colombia, not Colombia. And there is almost like 4,000 violations of human rights nowadays in the country, and like 50 statal murder case. So I would like to make you to be aware of these problems we are being right now. In this moment, the students of the universities are performing marcha, I don't know how to say that in English, are walking through different sides of the city to talk with the people and show the problems we are facing too. Finally, I would like to acknowledge all the team of URRAS for all this intense work we do here, to Juan David, to Juliana, to Daniela and Luisa for bringing me their photographies, and to all of you for being here, for listening, and I hope you find it interesting and you like it. So if you have any questions, I think we can do now then.
Thank you so much, Miguel. It was really interesting, your presentation, and very complete, I think so. Now it's open the space to questions. I was following YouTube, and the people, congrats to you, excellent presentations. Thank you for the information, and congrats to the speaker. Congrats, it's so rewarding learn a little more about this. So if someone have questions, this is the time to do it. Adroaldo?
I think Maria Eduarda raised her hand before me. You can give her the first, I think, Maria Eduarda.
Okay, sorry. Maria Eduarda, please.
Hi. First of all, congratulations. I love it. I love this team talking about birds and wildlife. First, I was thinking about asking what about the studies of wildlife in Colombia, but I think it's very similar to Brazil. We both are very rich in animals, but we have this problem with everything going on, like the studies and stuff like that. And one thing that I had to question, you put the parrots, the rehabilitation parrots, in a place with blue walls. Why those blue walls and with the parrots?
Well, I think maybe the photograph was altered in the computer because they are green. So we search for green because we want to simulate the natural environment to them and decrease the stress of the white walls and all the stress like a jail. So we don't want to be like them, like that.
Right. And one thing that I find very interesting too is the hunting rehabilitation is a very new thing to me, and I found that amazing. So congratulations and thank you for bringing that to us.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad you like it.
Thank you, Maria Eduarda. I think that the next one is Adroaldo, please.
Yeah, very, very complex type of work. The whole issue of feeding animals with prey, I'm sure that it generates a lot of debates, and of course there is no easy choice. But my question is, I like the way that you finish your talk with engagement of the local population, talk about the person who was killed, and put the suicide of vets. In a sense, I think they're all part of this big scenario where people with empathy are attracted to solve problems that a imperfect structure creates all the time. And throughout your talk, I identified that you pointed out in a relatively modest way the alternative that people are not going to be preserving what they don't know. And I think the message is there. I mean, in a sense, how can Brazilians, Colombians, South Americans, people truly take the ownership of the rich biodiversity to protect? Then my question to you is, are there any initiatives associated with the URRAs to get issues of biodiversity back into the school system or civil society as a way of empower them? Because I'm absolutely convinced that without empowering people to protect, there is no solution. There's absolutely no solution. And I thank you. Fascinating your talk.
Well, thank you very much, Osvaldo. Well, in URRAS, we don't perform that things because we are with a lot of work, all the animals, the urgencies, the internal medicines, and the administrative issues of the university. But let's say a good point is that the university has a lot of students, have groups of students that perform these activities. From some signatures, they have to do work with community, let's say in public health. Many people would like to be in schools or in some veredas, that are the towns in the woods, talking with people and telling the people, hey, look, this is a problem, this is happening, or be aware of this, not only in wildlife, but also in domestic animals, in production animals. So this is a very nice, and as it's very nice in the university, this diverse panorama or situation that allow people to explore different initiatives and take their plans into going. They postulate, they have an idea, and they start working. The resources they get from every place. So if you need money to the bus to get there, you start selling candies or selling beers. I don't know. The people create their own ideas, and this is very important. When I was a student, I was in the HEAS of here, the National University. I know that you have a HEAS there. We are like cousins. And we do activities with people in different ways. We do activities from people that have drug problems, that in schools with boys from kindergarten, or from the university, we take a chair and a table with some cards and play with the animals and show the poster of the works we were doing in the unit. So many people start being aware and conscious of what is in the university. Maybe one thing that wasn't very known some years ago was that in the university we have an endemic species of snake, the Atractus crassicaudatus. And now people find the snake and say, wow, this is the endemic snake, take a photo and take it to Instagram. That is very nice. And it's a change that has been occurring lately.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miguel. We have a question on YouTube from Deb Racciati. Hello, and thanks for your lecture. I have a question. You said that sometimes you teach how to live again in the wild by holding the young birds with adults. Do you have a group of adult birds?
Well, let's say that in URRAS there is always an income of animals. When we prepare a group for releasing, they all went out. But when you release 5 owls, the next day you have 7 owls. So it is not a problem. You only have to be conscious of the characteristics of the biological development of each animal and make the group. That is let's say, Marisol, if you help me, a ventaja.
Advantage.
An advantage of these species, but not applies to all the species. So you have to be creative. And as I was saying before, think as an animal. If you were that animal, what would you do for learning or being that animal? That is the hardest question you have to ask yourself in these rehabilitation places.
Thank you. And she replied, living in the center for this purpose, how do you consociate the young with the adults?
Well, this depends on the species. We make 2 types of approaches. The first one is the hard approach. You show the 2 individuals to each other and they start living. Usually in screech owls, this is not a problem. In parrots, it is a problem. So in parrots, we do the second strategy, that it is the soft approach. And what we do is in individual enclosures, we put one to another very close. So they start to see each other, to talking to each other, smelling, see how the other bird eats, how it moves, how it behaves. So when we see that the animals aren't creating a behavior of aggression, they are mixed. And that is how we make the groups. If the group, let's say there are 10 parrots in a big enclosure and we have to introduce a new one, we put the individual enclosure inside that big one, and wait until the other accept it for the group. This is a very complex behavioral problem because social animals are very, very complex. Not in birds so much, but mammals, let's say primates, it's hard. It is very hard. It is possible, yes, but it is complicated. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. Our time is finishing. If you want, you can see on YouTube the chat and reply and comment, the people that left the comments there. And thank you so much again to all of you and Miguel for your time, for sharing your knowledge about wildlife and rehab of these animals. And I want to share with you, all of you, the seminar of the next Thursday. Let me raise it. Thank you.
A last question, please.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you very much for your presentation. With the constantly reduce of the natural environment of these birds, do you believe that in the future some species could be adapted in the urban areas? Because I have a special concern about the arpia. I don't know if you know the arpia, Brazilian, the Amazon arpia. Do you believe that some species could be adapted to the urban areas? Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for that question. It's a difficult question because every species is very different to each other. Maybe in the case of the arpia, it will be very hard. They need a huge quantity of land to hunt, to fly, to search for prey. They reproduce very poor in 2 years, like 1, 2x. It's very hard, that biological behavior or reproductive strategy. But some other species, let's say the Stygian owl, the Asius stygius, here in Bogota have been adapted perfectly to the environment. Maybe, I don't know if it's for the house mouse or the rats in the city, but it is absolutely common to see this species in parks, in the university, in houses. And if you see in the internet, this species is usually known as a very rare, and there is usually nothing reported for this animal. So I think that it is a very individual issue, and we have to perform individual species investigation to determine this.
Oh, thank you very much. Here we have some examples of the carcará. I don't know if you know this species, and it's perfectly adapted to the urban areas. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm glad.
Thank you so much. Finally, let me inform you that the next week we will have a seminar with Enrico Ortolani talking about Programa Globo Rural y cómo afecta sua consulta veterinária. Thank you to all of you, and until the next week.
Very much.
Thank you.
We'd love to be in touch and come back to one of our coffees. We should invite you to come for one of our virtual coffees to continue discussion.